Good morning. I thought I would continue on with the Bible study. We're going to be going through John through 26 through 30. And basically we'll start with 26. And here's the verse. John told them, I baptize with water, but right here in the crowd is somebody you do not recognize. Though his ministry follows me, I'm not even worthy to be his slave and untie the straps of his sandal. This encounter took place in Bethany, an area east of the Jordan where John was baptizing. The next day John saw Jesus coming toward him. Look, the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. He is the one I was talking about when I said, a man is coming who is far greater than I am and who existed long before me. Okay. So, this idea of earlier that the Pharisees were challenging John, basically. They were basically telling him, look, what right do you have to baptize? And so John is basically saying, look, here's Jesus who's greater than me. There's my authority. Baptism in those days were usually done for Jewish converts. They were very rarely done for Jews themselves. And so when John is baptizing and baptizing Jews, it's taken the authorities back. And the Pharisees, as I've mentioned earlier, they had nothing to do with it. And John is not a priest. He's not claiming to be a priest. He's not claiming to be part of Pharisees or Sadducees. He's claiming to be one crying out in the desert, as in Isaiah 43. He's putting it right there. This is who I am. So that is basically John is basically letting them know, hey, here comes, the Pharisees know, hey, here comes one that's greater than me. You guys don't know him, but here he is. And so we get into this in 26, John tells them, I baptize with water, but here in the crowd is someone you do not recognize. So that's where he's letting them go. And in 27, though his ministry follows mine, I am not worthy to be his slave or untie the straps of his sandal. So when he's talking about that, we're talking about an era where everybody walks everywhere. And very few people have draft animals. The government does. If you're rich, you do. But most everybody else, they're on foot. They're walking to their trade. They're walking wherever they go. And the conditions of the day were very dusty, dirty. You've got dung. So your feet would be a pretty terrible mess. And so what the Baptist is saying is, this was a job that even the lowliest of low servants got. This was the considered, the worst job. It was considered demeaning by the people of the day just because of, they walk everywhere. Feet were nasty. They were dirty. And so basically what the Baptist is saying is, I'm not worthy to wear this. I'm not worthy to even do this. I am so far below the Messiah or Jesus. I'm not even able to do this. So he's trying to show just how far beneath Jesus that he sees himself, and that's what he's setting the stage. Sitting here. So he's sitting there, and we'll continue on to the next verse. This encounter took place in Bethany, an area east of the Jordan River, where John was baptizing. Okay, some things about this. This took place, beyond the Jordan River. A lot of scholars believe that the translation was actually Beth Bara, and it goes back and forth. This would not be the Bethany of Lazarus. This would be more of a tiny village or a hamlet. Most ancient historians put it on the site near Jericho on the east bank. It would be far away enough from Jerusalem and not metropolitan at all to be considered wilderness. You have to remember Herod the Great had many building projects of the day. Jerusalem was considered the jewel of the Middle East. It would have been considered very metropolitan, and so it would be like going to just the biggest backwoods area to especially the Pharisees. So that's the point that they're trying to make there. So we'll continue on verse 29. The next day John saw Jesus coming toward him and said, "Look, the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world." So the verse most likely takes place after the 40 days in the wilderness, where Jesus was tempted. The Lamb of God, he uses one, he has 7 names for John, and he uses the fourth, which is the Lamb of God. And this goes back to the celebration of Passover and the holiday back in the days of, and it goes back, Passover hails back to the days of Noah. It basically is where Moses had the lambs sacrificed and the blood sprinkled on the lampposts, and it allowed God's judgment to pass over them. And this is also the verse of the first of the 7 witnesses in the Gospel of John that declares that Jesus is the Messiah. One thing to note about verse 29, his crucifixion also symbolizes other things of the Old Testament. Instead of the lamb for sin offering, the book of Leviticus specifies a goat. And it's interesting to note that when the lambs were sacrificed in the temple, the goats were basically thrown out of the camp. And so if you take this and you look at the day of crucifixion, Jesus was taken outside the walls of the city to be sacrificed. So basically he was also kicked out of camp. So I mean, I thought that was kind of a neat parallel. I don't know if other people have drawn that, but I thought that was kind of something that was kind of neat, at least to me. And we get to verse 30, and I'll read this. He is the one I was talking about when I said, "A man is coming after me who is far greater than I am, for he existed long before me." We're getting to this establishing, this chronological superiority, which was very big in the day. This is basically, again, John emphasizing, I'm not here, I'm not the first one. This person precedes me by a great deal. He is establishing that he is the lesser of Jesus. The Baptist specifically points out Jesus is the one who had previously spoken of his mission and making a path for him. Interesting to note, after me comes a man. In the Greek, the term aner is used for man, and aner is basically a very direct emphasis on the maleness, which usually the word Anthropos, and I'm probably butchering that pronunciation, would have been used, and it's like the man, or there's a guy going down the street. But this is the man. This is an emphasis on his maleness, which is a further. John, the gospel writer, is further signifying that this is somebody who has headship. He's establishing his headship over, the Christ is establishing his headship over his followers, and this is used to kind of signify. Because he was not the Messiah, John the Baptist is also, pointing the way toward Jesus, so Jesus can take up the mantle. So, to kind of recap, we have the Pharisees, no doubt. Somebody from the Pharisees would have been around when this is going on. So, John is definitely letting people know, here is the Messiah. This is happening after the 40, more than likely after the 40-day temptation in the desert. And so he, is basically ready to start his ministry. And we'll go ahead and we'll end it there. And I hope these little snippets are helpful. I have, more than likely I get to go to work tomorrow, so I'm very happy about that. So they won't be coming quite as often, but they will be coming, and I will also be trying to make videos as far as the Gypsy goes. So, hopefully, or the Sojourn, and hopefully things will be back to normal for a while. So, goodbye, everybody, and God bless.